On March 15, the U.S. Senate passed legislation that would make daylight saving time permanent starting in 2023. This would put an end to the twice-annual changing of clocks in a move pushed on by supporters advocating brighter afternoons. In a bill being labeled as the Sunshine Protection Act, it would put an end to the practice of turning clocks back 1 hour to standard time every November, making daylight saving time, which currently begins in March, last throughout the year. Not a single senator objected, and the bill passed by unanimous consent in the notoriously divided Congress. In the late 2010s, more than 30 states across the country began advocating federal government to end the observance of time changes. This began attracting attention, and in 2018, the first version of this bill was introduced. However, each time, the bill would die in the committee and fail to advance to the next step. The bill was reintroduced in 2021 by Florida Senator Marco Rubio, and this time gained bipartisan support and was co-sponsored by senators usually disagreeing on most topics. The act would establish a permanent daylight saving time in the U.S., leading to later sunrises and sunsets and resulting in less sunlight in the morning hours and more sunlight in the evening ones. Daylight savings is not unique to the U.S., but its history has come a long way. In 1784, Benjamin Franklin proposed a form of daylight time. He claimed credit for discovering the fact that the sun begins shining from the moment it rose, something that the locals of his time, who slept until noon, never had any way of knowing. Franklin's suggestion was more of a joke than a real proposal, and nothing came of it at the time. It wasn't until 2 centuries later, during the First World War, that the idea of daylight savings was taken seriously. In an effort to conserve fuel during the World War I, Germany began observing daylight savings, and quickly the rest of Europe did the same. On March 19, 1918, the United States adopted its own version with the Standard Times Act, but it was met with intense disapproval. A large part of the negative reaction came from farmers because they had less time in the morning to get their milk and harvest crops to market. A farm lobby assembled in an effort to undo daylight savings, and in an effort to quell the revolt, Congress abolished daylight savings and even override President Woodrow Wilson's veto power. This created a situation where daylight savings became a regional option, where certain states, depending on their geographic area, had the ability to observe it. What emerged was a complicated rule set of daylight saving policies that varied in length and by city, state, and municipality. By 1965, there were 18 states that observed daylight savings for 6 months each year. 18 states that didn't have formal policies but held cities or towns with their own daylight saving standards, and another 12 states that didn't implement daylight saving at all. Meanwhile, parts of North Dakota and Texas observed a sort of reverse daylight saving time. This consisted of setting their clocks back an hour instead of moving them forward. By the 1916s, the transportation industry found all of this very confusing and began to push for federal regulation. This led to the 1966 Uniform Time Act, which is the version of daylight savings everyone in the U.S. is used to up to today. The act gave certain states the ability to choose whether or not they want to observe daylight savings. The state of Arizona decided against changing their clocks, and to this day are the only state in the intercontinental United States that does not observe daylight savings. Since the 1966 Act, daylight savings has largely gone unchanged until now. Through the years, the reason for turning our clocks took on new meanings. Early on during the war, it was meant to conserve energy, and later was meant to have people be more willing to spend more time doing outside activities after their workday was over. However, in 2022, many view changing the time as unnecessary and archaic. On the surface, the problems associated with daylight savings includes increased car accidents, increased crime, and reduced worker productivity. Health experts have found that daylight savings has an effect on the inside with how the brain works with the rest of the body. Permanent standard time is considered by health researchers and safety experts worldwide to be the best option for health, safety, schools, and economy. Organizations ranging from the World Sleep Society, National Safety Council, and Canadian Sleep Society hold this view that not changing the time would be good for the body. Even religious groups, such as the Orthodox Jews, support this view since their daily prayer is synchronized with times of sunrise and sunset. At a deeper level, changing the clock affects our circadian rhythm, which is the body's natural 24-hour cycle. Our internal clocks regulate processes including liver function, the immune system, and our body's physiology, which means any disruption can have significant effects on how we feel. Researchers in a 2015 study compared the rate of strokes during the week after daylight saving to the rate 2 weeks before 2 weeks after. They found the rate was 8% higher the first 2 days after the shift, and people with cancer were 25% more likely to have a stroke than during other times of the year. The 2022 Sunshine Protection Act could change how we function at a molecular level, and if it through Congress, it could mean a future where our bodies will always be in sync without time zones. What do you think? Can this bill actually change almost 100 consecutive years' worth of changing our clocks every year? Leave a comment to say how you feel about abolishing daylight savings.